Yeah.
And there goes the battle.
Start with.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I see we have a couple new faces today, which we could run around the, let me know if Sister Bay people show up. If it pops up there. Do you want to should we introduce ourselves?
Sure.
I'm Laura, the Adult Services Librarian here. I love genealogy and history. And today we're going to have Lori speak to us. Lori, do you want to say?
Sure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my trip that I went to Belgrade in Serbia. It was my first overseas trip and my first meeting with my relatives that live there.
Great. Tom Weisensel. I guess what else I say? I have German relatives, and I've been over to German
Nice.
to one side of the family, and I went to the family, supposedly the family homestead, which was fantastic. I mean, it's still there. You know, it's not owned by the family anymore, but so I know what you mean.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting to go there. Yeah, and that opportunity.
I'm Steve Osterhaus. Been doing this for quite a number of years. I got into it. My wife wanted to find out about our Irish heritage. And I knew what mine was. And then we had the DNA done. Now we don't have any idea what we are anymore. It's a real mess. And but as like Tom, on my father's side, our family farm in Germany is still standing. Been in the family since 1100. Right on the Dutch border.
I'm Rich Blum. I'm very interested in genealogy, and pretty much when my grandmother passed away, I interviewed her about 3 months before she passed away, and she gave me a treasure trove of family history. And
Lucky you.
Lucky.
yeah, just before.
Yeah.
Her claim to fame was she believes we're related to Red Skull. And I have found some traces of that, but still got to do some work. So I'm here to find out where I can go, and there's a lot of free stuff out there. There's a lot of misinformation. So,
Mike?
It's Mike Gallagher. I'm not in Washington today. Been doing genealogy about 65 years or more. I'm originally from Manitowoc County, 100% Irish, both sides. And that's what it is.
We have to give you sympathy or?
Oh, I did my DNA about 3 years ago, and I got on Ancestry, I got 14,000 matches. That's both sides.
All Irish.
Under my heritage, I'll do it. And there's 10,000, but 1,000 matches in Ireland. The UK is about 1,200. Oh man, trying to check some of these out.
Are you related to the other Mike Gallagher, the representative?
Well, when he was running for election, first time, he was at McDonald's one morning, talking to a bunch of veterans there in that corner. And I happened to finish work in the morning. I always go out there for coffee. And I knew what he looked like, so I figured that's him over there. So I waited till he got through talking, and then he was just about ready to leave, and I went up to him and I said, "My name is Mike Gallagher." He said, "I think there's about used to be 3 of us. There's probably 2 of us now in Door County." So then I wanted to check to see, his Gallagher's way back, well, obviously they're Ireland, and so I wanted to do some research on him to see. So I just he was ready to leave, and I asked him one question. I said, "What was your great grandfather's first name?" And he said Cornelius. And then I knew that he had been in Green Bay. So then I found his great grandfather on the census in 1910-20. His great grandfather is buried at Galloway Cemetery, and they had come over from County Donegal, Ireland. But strangely enough, on my DNA, I am connected to him through one of his great grandmothers, who was born in Brown County and is buried in the same cemetery in Manitowoc County where all my ancestors are. And so I would be the 3rd cousin to his grandfather, I guess, something like that. So.
That's your claim to fame, huh?
6 degrees of separation.
We're introducing ourselves. Welcome, Sister Bay and Charlene and S. Here. So Joel,
Okay, my name is Joel Curry. I've been helping my sister off and on for the last 5 years or so. Trace back one side of the family to New England because the book is here in the library. I'm back to the colonies. I'm not back all the way to England because in the book it's all handwritten. So I wanted to know where she got all in. And then on the other side is the Irish and the Norwegian. So I'm digging when I'm here. The Navy doesn't call me and send me some.
Mary Ellen.
And I'm Mary Ellen Ramstack. I don't know, I guess I've been fooling around with it for 10, 12 years now, but I'm half English, quarter Scot, quarter Irish. I'm thinking I'm from Northern Ireland because my grandmother, who used to live with us on St. Patrick's Day, I dress in green to go to school, the hoopla. She said, oh, no, you should have on orange. Well, what did I know? I go, orange on St. Patrick's Day, made no sense. As an adult, I go, ooh, I think that's a clue.
We find clues.
But I haven't, I can't seem to get back from here to there on any of them, actually. I know most of them were in Virginia, so where we immigrated to. But in a small town of Port Royal or in Caroline County, but the records burned during the War of 1812. So, I'm starting to think they just cruised up the James River in a boat because it was that early. It was in the 1700s sometimes. So I don't know, bits and pieces yet. I have to figure out.
And online we have Charlene. Nice to see you. And would you like to introduce yourselves in Sister Bay?
No. That's me.
Okay, yeah.
You have a microphone there or, yeah.
Yeah, can you hear us?
We're muted.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Apparently not.
We're not hearing anything.
Just a minute.
I don't know if the microphone's not working, but,
I can hear them.
oh, Charlene?
Yeah, I can hear
had this
them.
trouble the other day. I don't know what's causing it.
Charlene, you can hear us, right? Tell them that you can.
Hmm.
Can you tell them
They
that?
can hear me. I'm not sure if you can. I had trouble with my microphone last time I tried to talk in a meeting.
Now are we hearing you?
Change the speaker. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay.
It was on my problem here, something, I don't know what, but go ahead.
I'm gonna try this.
No, we can't hear them.
I know, I'm just adjusting something here. Can you talk a second again?
I'm speaking right now.
Okay.
Kind of.
1 second. I'm just changing one of our speakers was really loud, so I'm just putting a different output. Can you say something again?
Hello.
Yeah, that's like too soft.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to the TV and I'm gonna turn it down. Okay, can you say something again?
Hello, Christina. Hello, Christina.
All right.
All right.
Okay, I think we're gonna keep it on this one. Okay. Should go around.
We already went around the table, so we're back to you.
Okay, well, today we're gonna have a special presentation by one of our regular members, Lori Serb. And she's going to talk about her trip to Serbia to track down her family. And I must say, I'm really excited about this because I looked up, my brother did a DNA test and we know his Y DNA, which is my father's ancient haplogroup, and it happens to be centered right on Serbia and East Europe. So I think we may be related somewhere in the long, long past.
Awesome.
So Lori, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, I'm gonna try to do that now. Okay, did that work or they're not seeing it?
Yeah, oh, remember how you do share a screen and then you
No.
Okay, go to your Zoom,
Okay, go back to Zoom,
this green thing,
share screen.
and then double click on that. There we go. And then you can start your program.
Okay, I think I'm gonna manually push through these. I'm very low tech. I am not a PowerPoint person.
You started and then you use the arrows to go
This will
forward.
work like down.
Yeah, does it say start up there?
No. I was just gonna do this.
Okay.
Click on it. I don't know how to do an automated, so
Okay,
my partner who does PowerPoints all the time, she got me set up, but now she's not here, so I will do the best I can to work with the technology, but a lot of people don't know where Serbia is, so I thought it would be good to start with a basic map. I always go back to Woody Woodpecker cartoon
Sorry.
that Italy gave him the boot. And that's how I start to find Serbia and some of the Eastern European countries that we don't know by name or we don't see in the news a lot. So I tried to be just a really basic map here. Serbia is a landlocked nation in the southeast of Europe. It's roughly the size of Maine, slightly smaller than South Carolina. There were two different sources that I got on that. Serbia was once part of Yugoslavia. So in my childhood, we were from Yugoslavia, but now it's much more specific, according to a lot of different people. So you can say former Yugoslavia, or you can get into more of the specifics. But when Serbia was part of Yugoslavia, which was a much larger nation, it has existed in various forms under different names throughout much of the 20th century. So I think this is relevant because when you try to figure out where your family was from, you have national borders that change based on occupation or invasion. You have ethnicity based on religious background, or, you know, a group of people can live in a country but be considered different ethnicities. And one of the things that I find very consistent is the Danube River, which is the second largest, longest river in Europe. It begins in Germany's Black Forest and flows from west to east, which is very unusual. It's the only major river on the continent to do so. The Danube River borders another 9 countries. So you have Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, which will come into play for my family, Serbia, which comes into play for my family, Romania might, but I don't know yet, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Ukraine. So all of those up into the Black Sea, from basically the Black Forest to the Black Sea, the Danube River connects everything. And you can kind of see that a little bit on this map here. And what it's going to do is it's going to go through Belgrade, which is where I'm going to be visiting. My grandfather, Peter Šerbedžija, was born in 1902 in a small village in Croatia, which is not Serbia, but it was part of former Yugoslavia. And again, borders change. So 1902 for him. My grandmother, Danica Antonic, and that's the family that I'm going to be visiting, is connected to that. Danica was born in 1909 in Banja Luka, which was part of Bosnia-Herzegovina, also considered part of Yugoslavia for a time. My uncle Zoran was born in 1937 in Sisak, Croatia, and my father Dragan was born in 1938 in Zagreb, Croatia. And the reason I bring up Croatia is because they were Serbs based on their religious connection going back to the Ottoman Empire. This is where you have Serbs, Croatians, Muslims, Turks, Jews, all these different people living in one country, but not necessarily affiliating with the name of that country. So they were Serbs living in Croatia. And the reason that this is important to bring up is because when the Nazis invaded Croatia in April of 1941, the country became very pro-Hitler, and Croatians who were Catholics helped to exterminate Serbs, Roma people who at the time were considered gypsies, but we don't use that term, it's inappropriate now. Jewish people, other people of political descent who did not support the Nazis or were not Catholics. And my family was one of many that was put into a work camp, which was called, it looks like Jasenovac, but it's pronounced Jasenovac. And my grandfather's brother was murdered there. I have found some records through the Jewish Holocaust Museum to find some of these things. And the reason I bring that up is because they endured a lot in Croatia as Serbs. And growing up, I was told that they spent 9 months in this concentration camp, which was a work camp, but they assumed that they were going to be shipped off and gassed. So that was something that my father was 3 years old, Zoran was 4 years old. My grandmother was 32 and Peter was 39. Peter was associated with King Peter's army. He ended up being a captain in King Peter's army. And this is another complicated piece because he was never going to support the Nazis directly. King Peter fled Yugoslavia. So people who were in King Peter's army split up into different fragments, which created kind of a civil war among the occupation by the Nazis. And it's very complicated, so I don't expect everyone to follow this. I have struggled with understanding it myself, but some of this comes into play when I meet my relatives. And so the more, the more you can just have an open mind about how different things are based on context and variables, the easier it is to just kind of go with the flow on things. So this was my first time in the city of Belgrade. Belgrade is the capital of Serbia now. It was the capital of Yugoslavia or former Yugoslavia. Belgrade has experienced more than 115 wars. It has been destroyed and rebuilt 44 times. Belgrade is where the Danube River meets with the Sava River. And this has been put into a lot of different literature and there's a lot of significance to that. The Danube River then flows southeast, forming a portion of Serbia's northeastern border with Romania. And so after my father's family was in the concentration camp or the work camp, Peter's military connections are what got them out. And they were being somehow checked in at some point. They were going through a check-in line and a man said, "Peter, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." And that's how they got out. And it's just, it's amazing to me, the randomness of survival for a lot of our families and how they move from place to place. So it didn't get easier for my family. Once they got to Belgrade, they got to be there for a number of bombings. On this day in 1941, the Nazis bombed Belgrade. I'm not sure if my father's family was in the city at that point or they were still having their struggles in Croatia. This is a little where things get blurry, but I know that between the 1941 bombing by the Nazis, there were also a couple other bombings that happened that they probably were there for. The Nazi Air Force bombed Belgrade on April 6th for 6 days. And I know that some of my current living relatives, they had stories of their experience in the city at that time. After almost 3 years after that 1941 invasion and the occupation of the Nazis, Belgrade was carpet bombed again, April 16th through the 17th, 1944 by British and American air forces to hit Nazi strongholds. And the reason I bring this up is because sometimes as Americans, we are not aware of what we have created as relationships elsewhere, how we're viewed by others. My mother and father had a lot of conflict over this fact, but I have found multiple sources to confirm that yes, the United States and the Allies bombed the city of Belgrade. Belgrade was bombed again by the US 15th Air Force on September 6th and 8th, 1944. And those dates are significant because I think at least 2 or 3, or maybe all of them, my father was a child, my uncle was a child, and my grandparents were living in the city at that time. So this is a little bit of my paternal genealogy. I tried to use blue to show my direct connection to the people I was visiting. My grandmother Danica is part of the Antonich family. There are 9 siblings. I met the descendants of Milka, who was the 3rd oldest in the Antonich clan. And Milka's daughter, Juliana, is my father's cousin. She's 86 years old. We had a letter correspondence in 1999 when I was in my late 20s, and that's another story. I'm looking at the time to make sure I don't get to too many different loose ends and rabbit holes, which I didn't check my timer. But so Juliana is 86. I've never met her. Her daughter Ivana is the green below. She's found me on Facebook in 2010. And she knew that I wrote to her mother. And so she friended me on Facebook. So we've been Facebook friends, but even though both of them speak English, they write a lot in Serbian. So I can use Translate in Facebook to see what Ivana wrote, but generally I didn't look at a lot of what she was writing. So fast forward, I found out I have a half brother in 2005 and he was on my Facebook. So I don't even do DNA stuff because people just seem to find me and they are. And I can't handle, I don't think I can handle anymore. But what's funny is when I met Juliana and we were talking, she said, I was told there were 2 wives and 5 children. Well, I've only accounted for 4. Me, my 2 sisters who I grew up with, my half brother who I did not grow up with, who was part of a marriage before my father married my mother, which I didn't know about until I was in my 30s. And now there may be another child, another sibling in Texas.
Of your father?
Of my father's. My father died in 2016, so I will not know from him. I'm hoping to find some military records and try to trace through that. But at this point, my hands are full in who I actually have in front of me to talk to and meet. So I'm not really pursuing the Texas thing just yet. But Juliana is a lot of fun because she grew up in, oops, I shouldn't go that fast. Let me try again here. Just so you have a chance, this is my, I guess she would be, she's my father's cousin. Juliana, she's the oldest of that generation that's still alive. She has a brother who pre-drag, who I also met, but he wasn't much of a conversationalist. His wife was, but I really enjoyed sitting and having Turkish coffee with Juliana in her flat.
Is she on a phone?
Yes, she's using her, well, because,
86.
yeah, because she lives in the same building as Ivana and her family. So
Yeah.
this building,
Neat.
back here, the 7th floor, the top floor is where her daughter Ivana and Ivana's husband and her 4 children live. Juliana lives down here. This is in the yellow building on the 2nd floor, and I was staying in a room on the 5th floor. So it was really cool to be all in the same building and yet still have my own private bedroom and bathroom. I mean, it's just a little, it's a hostel, considered a hostel, but I thought it was, compared to the hostels I've stayed at in America, it was very, very nice. Yes, the lift was a very intimate experience. There was, we fit.
One at a time.
Well, 3 if you're.
People are no longer.
Generally do, right, and when I was going home to the airport, her husband and I and my 2 suitcases and my carry-on was all, I mean, I was like this. So the lift was, yeah, that was a really interesting experience.
Okay,
But,
claustrophobic.
right, and the other thing is because there's other people who are staying at the hostel or renting rooms, plus the families that actually live there, there's a lot of activity on the lift.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what etiquette was. Because, you know, I would be going up to the 7th floor and the elevator would, or the lift would stop and the door would open and someone needs to get in. It's me. So then it's like, okay, I'm going the opposite. They want to go down. I want to go up. I didn't know if I was supposed to exit. So Ivana.
American, it's alphabetical order.
So I asked, I tried to be polite, you know, and I was, should I get out of the elevator? And nobody seemed to really expect me to do it. But when I talked to my 2nd cousin, Ivana, the daughter of Juliana, she was, I just turned my back. I don't let anybody in. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I should have just done that. But anyway, so this is my my 2nd cousin. This is Juliana's daughter, Ivana. She's 2 years younger than me. And these are
In the
3
front?
Yeah, so this is, let's see if I can get my mouse to, this is her here. So she has an older brother who was born in 1970. I was born in 1974, and she was born in, I think, 76. She's a couple years younger than me. This is her 15-year-old son, Shohinya, who was my best guide. He was very interested in speaking English the whole time. He had the ability, the mental ability to translate conversations that were happening. I know about 5 words and I can't really put a sentence together. He loves American jazz. He has a record collection. We talked about jazz. He loved Bohemian Rhapsody as a movie. He had some Queen LPs, which we like really connected on the music, which was great. And Ivana teaches English. Her mother also used to teach English, so they are very fluent. And Bogdan, who is pretty shy, but not as shy as Nicola. Bogdan is into Rubik's Cubes. He does speed contests. I mean, he's like, she's filming YouTube videos and putting them up there. They all have some acting career and commercial career material. So they've all been in front of a camera. Strahinja has, at age 15, he has done some documentary work where he's done voiceovers. He has taken Nickelodeon material and translated it and been the voices for different characters. So they're very fluent in Western pop culture, but that's not where they don't love it. It's integrated into Belgrade. And so why I bring this up is because they are Orthodox Christian. These are all symbols in the back. You have your Saint Sava here. You have Jesus here, and then Mary and Jesus here. And then this is part of a tradition of oak leaves, which is a part of a Yule log tradition. And then this is wheatgrass. And at a certain point on a certain day, they light candles or sticks. They have little symbol of warmth, and they explained it all to me, but I didn't grow up with this, and so I'm not as fluent in explaining it. But the tradition is that during Christmas and New Year's are very big holidays, and Easter is another very big holiday for them. And so there are different traditions that they do. So one of the things that we did was that the two, Bogdan and Nicola, you can't really see them, but they are singing in this choir, and this church, I have never been in a space with over 500 Serbian people at one time. It was amazing. And they sang in the choir. They all sing in the choir. Ivana, her husband, they met in their choir through their church. Strahinja is not much of, I think he used to, but he's kind of at 15 finding other interests. So at this ceremony, we were supposed to watch the choir first, and then we were going to skip out when they did all of the traditional ceremony, but they switched it on us. So we stood there crammed it was packed. And then all of a sudden this dog comes up and people are pushing this dog, and it walked up to the stage. Now, this is before the kids were there. This is when there was a priest, and the priest was giving blessings. I mean, it was all, and he's pushing the dog away. Well, what I found out later, because I couldn't ask at the time, they don't have animal shelters or animal control. And so this is a dog that is a street dog. And the dog was basically probably looking to be in a warm area, but also looking for some attention, and everyone just kind of pushes it along. And when I talked to Strahinja about it, he said that people feed the dogs, and sometimes they take them in, like their family has 2 cats that they acquired through an open window, essentially. And now they have 2 cats. But these dogs, I mean, these are big dogs. And this was throughout Serbia that I saw this, that these dogs would be sunning themselves in the middle of the day, and then they would disappear at night. Or I'd be walking at night and a dog would walk between cars. One of them actually was limping. I think it had been hit by a car at some point on its way somewhere. But they don't look mangy, but it was a very weird thing for me to kind of adjust to, because I felt that these dogs were somewhat in danger, but they did not present a danger to people. They were not aggressive in any way. But anyway, so we're in this fancy, it's very traditional fancy church, and this dog walks up. And so when I was relaying that story to my Juliana, she just kind of rolled her eyes. My God, just kind of rolls her eyes about it. But we had the best conversations, Juliana and I, because not only did she put out treats, and she has this brandy. This brandy is a favorite plum brandy that she had, and I think it was made locally. She doesn't make it herself, but she makes a lot of the desserts and meals herself. And when we were sitting there drinking Turkish coffee and having this brandy and having the conversation, there was this piece of chocolate cake next to me, and I'm like, "Did you want your cake?" She goes, "No, that's for you." And I said, "Oh, I don't like chocolate." And she looks at me and she says, "We are related." And she took the chocolate cake and took it back in the kitchen. She does not like chocolate either. Ivana doesn't like chocolate. So that was kind of an interesting connection that we had. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Okay, so one of the things that we did was Ivana said, write down a bunch of things you want to do in Belgrade and while you're here, and I'll put together the itinerary. And she likes to put together itinerary. So and I was panicking because I was trying to do research, figure out what I wanted to see. I mean, to me, it was like, I just wanted to be able to talk to people and have a guide pretty much, because I felt it was my first time being in a country where I couldn't read street signs. When people came up to me and started talking to me, I had no idea what they were saying. And I would grab whoever was near, I didn't know if they needed something, but I wasn't used to kind of winging it by myself. And I've traveled by myself when I know the country language. I can travel the United States, not a problem. I can go to communities I don't know and navigate. But this, I felt I really wanted to have somebody with me all the time, because even though I felt that I was trying to blend in, I kind of stood out. I think I was, pretty
I think
obvious.
they know us Americans.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there were, I'll get to that in a second, but so the Avala Tower is the tallest structures in Serbia. And so you could pay to go up into the tower and look out and with big binoculars. It was destroyed in 1999 by NATO. It has since been rebuilt. It was rebuilt in 2006. Originally, it was constructed, I should have done this in linear order, but it was originally constructed in 1961 and 65, and that's when they first had television, 60s. So we're talking about the whole Yugoslavia area. This tower was broadcasting television in the mid 60s. It was destroyed by NATO. This is going back to Milosevic. That's a whole nother longer conversation, but basically it is not forgotten the damage that NATO has done to this country. And they leave a lot of the buildings that have been destroyed in 1990, they leave them so that people remember. And there's some mural propaganda next to some of the destruction of join the military, so there's a sense of we're not the bad people. And the reason they want the world to know that they're not the bad people is because going back to World War II, what the Croatians did, the Catholics did to Serbian, Russian Orthodox Serbs was kind of washed over when Tito came into power at the end of World War II. It was a loose end that wasn't addressed in a way that the tensions between the different ethnicities was kind of smoothed over by Tito until he died in 1980, and then things started to flare up again. And that's, again, a very simple explanation. But my relatives, I wouldn't say Juliana, but I would say her daughter, Ivana, and Ivana's husband are definitely nationalists. They don't see Kosovo, they won't recognize Kosovo as its own country. Kosovo was recognized by most of the world in 2008 as its own country. And because this goes back to the history of the Serbs against the Turks and 1300s, we're talking about going way, way back. They don't see Serbia as complete without Kosovo. And there were some tensions going on in the news. There was a couple of shots fired during the holiday at Serbs in the Kosovo area. So you have Albanians who are the majority who live in Kosovo. You have Serbs that are in the northern part of Kosovo. And right now there's an issue with license plates that there's supposed to be Kosovo issued license plates, and Serbs that live there don't want to have to comply with this. And so these tensions are there, and they were definitely visible while I was there.
And which was when were you there?
In January.
Oh, just, okay.
It is still going on.
2023.
Yes, so
Okay.
so the UN, United Nations, Serbia has applied for membership, and Kosovo is a kind of a sticking point. And another sticking point is that Serbia is not willing to put sanctions on Russia. Serbia gets a lot of their power, electric, from Russian sources. There's a lot of interconnection with Russia and European energy. And so this is something that, again, creates a certain view of who Serbs are by a lot of people.
And who is the leader of Serbia now? Can't remember.
Vučić.
I'm sorry.
Vučić or Vukic. And so Juliana doesn't like him either. They're not like fans of their current leadership either, but they're very proud as far as their national heritage. And that's kind of what I got. So this is at the tower, the radio tower, there's also the this is the statue to the unknown hero. This goes back to World War I. And it was a very long stair step up to the sculpture area. And as you can see, this is their dog. This is their Boschko. And Boschko, as a dog, he's got a little harness and has got a little sweater. You can't probably see it as well, but I kind of like the way the picture turned out. He's named after a soldier, and I'm not sure which war, but the soldier was smaller than his gun. And so that's kind of the joke that they named their dog.
Oh, smaller than his gun?
Yeah, so he had some huge weapon and he's a small person, and so that's kind of the joke. So that's why the dog is named Boschko. Boschko was very enthusiastic and enjoyed running up and down the stairs and was there. So but Boschko was not allowed in the tower, so Ivana couldn't join us in the tower looking through the binoculars because she had the dog. So she had the dog. There were other stray dogs that were sunning themselves in the area, but they did not bother Boschko. Okay, so then this is a fountain, Shukor fountain, if I'm saying that correctly. And this is the boy with the broken pitcher. This goes back to the Ottoman Empire, so a 500-year occupation. The incident that it's documenting here is in 1862. A Serbian boy who was getting water at the well was assaulted and killed by these Turkish soldiers, which created a uprising and battle between Serbs and Turkish forces. And so it's been on this street, it's a monument that was erected in 1931, which I think would have been seen by my father as a child. And my father, as it turns out, whoops, I did that wrong, lived across the street on the 3rd floor of this building.
From the fountain?
Yes, from the fountain. So on the 3rd floor, and this was, Strahinja and I were walking around. This is about 2 miles from where I was staying, where we stayed pretty much, we were in the heart of the city the whole time. And Strahinja was on the phone with Juliana while she's trying to make the cake that has the coin in it that gives whoever gets the coin has good luck for the year. So she's trying to bake and get this done. Strahinja and I are running around up and down the street trying to find where my father lived, and he keeps calling her on his cell phone, and she says, whatever. And then we go to a street, and he asks her, "Is this right?" She's, no, keep going. So we finally found it. I confirmed it with Juliana. I took the photo. I brought it back to her and said, "Is this the place?" So when I was a kid, my father told me a story about when they lived in Belgrade and the bombs were dropping, and this could have been any of those 3 or 4 times I talked about earlier. They have a Red Cross shelter, which is still there about half a block around the corner of this building. And the bombs started dropping, and my grandfather grabbed my dad and he grabbed Zoran. And they ran down the stairs with Danica, and they went to the shelter, and they bang on the Red Cross shelter. And the shelter said, "We'll take her, take the 2 kids, but we won't take you." And so he said, okay. So he dropped him off. He went back to the 3rd floor, opened a bottle of Schlivitz, sat there while everything was shaking, the building was shaking, just drank and drank. And after the bombing was done, they went back to the building, and he was drunk as a skunk sitting in his chair. And it was just one of these stories that you hear as a kid, and then you're actually there. And you see the building is still standing. The building that Juliana and her family live in was built in 1936. There are some buildings that are very old and then some really modern stuff, and it's a hodgepodge of different structures. So I found that to be very touching. Then I was also panhandled while I was trying to take the picture.
Of course.
And then I think that is a picture of Al Capone that's spray painted. There's a lot of graffiti all around the city. And I think what the graffiti does is I don't like it, but I think it's very telling of the climate of where the people are at. And it changed daily. I mean, a lot of this stuff was.
And I think that occurs not just in Serbia. That is around Europe an awful lot.
Yeah, and this might be something that
I
I'm
don't know,
not as
yeah.
aware of, but yeah, I think in Europe it's a lot more prominent. If I was in Chicago, this would not be a place I would stop to take a picture.
No.
Because that would inform me, in my experience of Chicago, is that you don't stand there that long, you just keep walking.
Is it safe in Belgrade to walk around, or is it like any big city?
Well, it depends on who you ask. So 15-year-old Strahina says that he walks around, takes public transportation, but there's a soccer feud. And if you are not part of one or the other soccer team, you can get beat up for, identifying as liking the other soccer team. And I said, does this happen to women? And he said, no, not really. But I don't know how women who are out, if they're in groups, when I talked to Juliana, she's like, I can't believe that my grandchildren go out at night, that my daughter lets them go out. And so I was getting very different views on how safe it was. With Strahina, I felt like he knew the language, but I did get panhandled. People were asking me for money and he would just push through them or whatever. And if I had stayed too long trying to understand what they were asking me, I think I might have had some problems.
Is there a police presence or a military presence?
No.
We lived in Spain for a while, and the streets, they had military and police presence at all times.
I did not see anything like that.
I've lived there too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't see anything like that. There was, the university had graffiti. One of the things, they recently had an LGBT Euro Pride, which was this year. And someone had wrote "Good night, Euro Pride," which is basically, it's a hostile statement about LGBT people. So for me, I thought I blended it enough. I've grown my hair out, I wasn't wearing a big flag or anything, but I do have certain identifying. I'm a striking person and I don't fit the gender binary in a lot of situations. And so I often feel like I might be targeted more, but I felt safe with Strahina and I felt safe walking around at night with my group. I didn't do anything by myself. And that was my own choice. They would have let me if I wanted to, but I didn't. I guess it was just too busy and then feeling like if I can't read a street sign, even though I had my phone, I didn't really want to stop to ask anybody. I didn't feel comfortable exchanging money. Strahina did all of that. We went to the art museum, the modern art museum. I really wanted to go. And then we also went to the Tesla museum. So that's Nikola Tesla's ashes in the globe. And then next to it is Serbia upside down in a boat, which was this modern piece. But Strahina said it's not Serbia because Kosovo's not there.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Right. So this becomes like this
editorial commenting.
This is right. So we had an interesting discussion about it because his interpretation, he didn't want to go to the art museum. I could tell because we couldn't find it. First of all, you had to go through a park. We had to take a bus to get there. And it was on my list. So I think Ivana's like, you're taking her to the modern art museum. You're the one that's going to have to do that. So when we get there, I said, he said, I forgot money. I didn't bring any money. I said, I have money. He goes, no. I've got enough. And then I'll find out how much it is. So he went to the counter and they told him, and then he told me how much it was. He goes, do you still want to go? And I said, yeah, it's like, that's why, I'm here. Yes, I do. If you want to go run around the park, that's fine. Just pay for my ticket. So I'll stay here and you come pick me up. No, he decided he would stay in the museum. So it's a 3-floor amazing museum. They had a display of a sculptor who has been around for 30 plus years. I don't remember his name. I have it written down in my little book, but it's not probably relevant to anyone else here. But this piece really spoke to me because it took me a while to figure out what that was. And when I said it was Serbia, Strahina said it's not Serbia because Kosovo is not on it. That spoke volumes to me for a 15-year-old to say that. So
you'll never forget it.
And it'd be interesting, to talk to him years from now and see how he feels about things. But this is the nationalist view, it's not something that's easily translatable to American thinking. So there's lots of great food. This beer is called Yellen. When I asked Strahina when we were having the New Year's celebration, I wanted something local. He says, get Yellen. It's older than your country. Okay. And he was right. 1750. So A lot of pickled things. We had a lot of cabbage, a lot of
Potatoes?
meat. Huh?
Potatoes?
No,
No?
no, there was no potatoes, a lot of meat, a lot of sausage, a lot of pork, peppers, bell peppers, cabbage. All really good stuff, but I didn't have any dietary restrictions. I decided I wouldn't do that to myself, and I enjoyed everything I ate. This is the extended family. So what we have is Juliana is sitting at the head of the table. You can see me, I'm the biggest smile. Nicola is on the other side. He's the youngest of Ivana's 4 boys. Ivana is then next to him. Then we have her oldest, who's 18. He went on a ski trip, so I didn't have a lot of interaction with him. This is another cousin of mine. So she's a second cousin. She is the daughter of Juliana's brother. So the 2 cousins that are still around that my dad would have been my dad's cousins, Juliana and her brother. These are their children.
Oh, okay.
So this is Yelena, and then her sister, Ivana. Ivana will be on Serbia Survivor. She's a bodybuilder, and she just got accepted onto the TV show Serbia Survivor. So I will be trying to learn Serbian as I watch her do these crazy elimination shows. I usually don't watch these kind of shows, but
I don't
it's an
either, but-
exception. Yelena is opening a restaurant with her partner. I forgot his name. This is Bogdan, who's the Rubik's Cube guy, but also he's the 3rd child of Ivana. This is Ivana's husband, Pekka, which you can't see because he's kind of cut off. And then this is my best guy is Strahinja. And this guy, I forgot his name, but he's partnered with Ivana. So in Serbian, we don't have a word for cousin. It's your sister. So I would be Ivana's sister, I would be Yelena's sister, and I would be considered Ivana's sister. And so it's hard to kind of, in my mind, I needed to draw little charts to figure out who was related to the Antonich family, which if we go back really quick to that slide where this was kind of my guide, the 9 siblings, my grandmother being the 2nd born of the 9 siblings, Milka being the 3rd born of the 9 siblings. And then I met descendants of Milka, which would be Juliana, who's still alive, her brother, Predrag, who's still alive. Then you have the restaurant owner, Ivana, who is the bodybuilder who will be on Serbia Survivor. Ivana, who is the daughter of Juliana, who I stayed with. And then her brother, who I didn't meet, Roscoe, he works in Saudi Arabia, but I met his wife and 2 children.
And then that Peko
Mhm.
was Ivana's husband down
Yeah,
at the
Peko.
front of the picture.
Yes. And he's also the one holding the dog in
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
photograph that has here.
yeah.
And one of the things I enjoyed about Pekka is that he wore overalls a lot and he had a fanny pack, what I call a fanny pack.
Mhm.
They don't apparently in Europe, they don't, fanny is depending on what country you go to. But to me, I found that to be very useful. A man bag, sure. So I wear a man
What does he
bag.
do for?
He works in hydraulics or he works with water, the dam that's
Okay.
there, and I think he's upper middle management. We didn't get a lot of,
Oh,
I didn't get a lot of that information because he was so busy going into the history of Serbia.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I was just.
Yeah. So I would say that they're upper middle class, that they're well educated. I think he went to university. He was not drafted in '99, but he's my age, so he would have when Milosevic was in charge, he would have served at that point, but he didn't end up having to, and I'm not sure what happened there.
Mm.
Ivana had a brother. Her brother did not serve. He left the country because he didn't want to serve.
Was he that P-Drag or Pit?
No, that's
Oh,
that's
that's all right.
that's okay. No, that's the cousin of my dad's.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Rotsko is his name, but we didn't have a picture
Yeah.
of him.
Okay.
So the question was, as far as what he does for a living, I know that he works for a pretty well-known established water piping company. He's upper management. Ivana teaches, she works mostly out of the flat, but she's a teacher. She just teaches English. Her mother also was an English teacher, but worked in Germany. So language is something that people learned a lot. So I think they're well read. But I would say middle class is probably, or even upper middle class. And then they've got all of this connection with commercials that they're doing, the Nickelodeon voiceovers and so that's pretty much,
You have
Is
some
it high
artistes.
cost of living?
you know, I don't know.
Food costs and that high? Or-
I know that
I assume you were in open air markets to see a little bit of it.
I did, but I brought dinars with me and I wrote down the conversion, but I didn't actually do
The math.
the math. So I know that they had, after 99, they had a lot of inflation. And I think things around 2008 or maybe even a little later kind of leveled out. And I don't really know economically where things are as far as inflation compared to where we are right now. So everything is, it's Celsius, metric,
Yep.
dinars. I mean, I was military, not military time, they don't say military time, but all of those things,
Yeah,
that kind of
2200,
translation.
yeah.
2,400.
Yes, I was not very, very fluent in that, and I appreciated having a guide for that. So my homework is to be better adapted to all of those more European standards.
I think it will come. You were overwhelmed on your first ever visit.
You know, I was
And
actually.
it'll settle in. Yeah.
Well, thank
Don't
you.
worry about it.
I'm hoping that I'll be able to go
Your
back.
trips that You just
Yeah.
think that way, or you put the conversion on your phone and it goes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I did rely
5
on.
by 2 and subtract 10 or whatever the heck it was.
Your slide.
Well,
Do you want-
Did they get around with cars?
Yes, absolutely.
Did they go around with buses? I mean, how'd they get around?
So they have two vehicles. They have a van, a minivan that we all piled in at the airport. So 4 boys, me, Ivana and her husband. The reason I'm laughing is because when I met them at the airport, I've never talked to these people. I only know them from pictures on Facebook. And Ivana felt the same way. So we had corresponded with email. But when I got to the airport, I said, I'm here. Where do I find you? She goes, follow everybody else, just follow everybody else. And the whole place is under construction. So I just went with everybody. I got my suitcases and I just followed. And then there was a point where things kind of opened up and I saw her and we're all tall, over 6 feet. It was immediately everyone came and got my suitcases. All of a sudden I'm being whisked through the parking lot, get stuffed in the
You had to
van.
Go through customs?
Oh, I did go,
Oh,
this is
okay.
all after I went through
Oh,
customs.
okay,
So I did
okay.
all of that before I actually saw
yeah.
my relatives.
Okay.
So I was in the airport by myself, just
And you're like,
following.
who are these people and where am I going?
Yeah, and some guy yelled at me, Chicago. And I was like, oh, and I turned around, he goes, do you have anything to report? And I was thinking, is this guy is he legit? Because he's not really kind of counter or anything, he just followed me. And so I was like, no, I just got here, I'm fine, I thought I'm just gonna try to keep moving with the crowd, but he did single me out and he called me Chicago and I
Oh, was he
responded.
just a guy on the street or?
No,
was
no,
he
in the airport,
Oh, one of
but I'd
the,
already gone through customs.
oh, one of the customs official looking people?
Yes, and yeah, he kind of looked official, but he was standing around. So, again, it was just like, I didn't really know. And when I was leaving, fortunately, her husband, Pekka, took me to the airport and got me through check-in because they told me you don't have check-in for 2 bags. You only have check-in for 1. I'm like, no, I should have check-in for 2. And then he started speaking Serbian. And he's like, he wasn't gonna. And so Pekka I had to pay $90 to get my second bag, checked in.
Come on, yeah.
And then, which I thought, okay, that was bad enough. And then when I go through customs, they didn't make me take off my shoes, but it was a long line in customs. So I'm like, okay, I got through customs and then someone had a heart attack right in front of me. They were laying on the ground. They crossed their feet. People were screaming and yelling.
Oh
And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. So I was like,
I'm never gonna get out of here.
right. I was like, I'm gonna get it. And then when I got to Germany, it was 40 minutes late. So when I got to O'Hare, which was also, at least I knew the language. in O'Hare.
Chicago.
Yeah, but once I got, then I got to Chicago, Lynn ended up driving down to get me because I missed my connection to get
Yeah.
to Green Bay and I would have been separated from my luggage and my luggage might have gone one. So I called Lynn, she's at Green Bay. I'm like, I just got my luggage. I have 20 minutes. The line is like huge around and I'm not going to get checked in. She was just stay there. I'll just come get you.
Yeah. So that's what our ancestors felt like coming here.
Well, I think I had an easier time than they did, but yeah.
Well, this is What you just did is
Yeah.
fantastic, and this is what
Thank you.
genealogy is all about.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank
Yes.
you.
It's not the dates, it's not the tree,
Right.
it's
It's the
the
story.
interaction, the story. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I applaud.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good.
Well, now we'll give you
And
a
you
break.
learn something about their
Yeah.
culture
Yes,
by actually being there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
did I,
Oh,
say again?
You learn a lot about their culture by
Yes.
just being there.
Yes, and we had a lot of laughs. So one thing, in first grade, I had a really traumatic first grade teacher, Mr. Jurgensen, was really mean, and my dad would talk to me on the phone every day at work. He's like water off a duck's back. It rhymes in Serbian. So I asked everybody, and they're like, what? Either my dad made it up, or, I don't know who told him there was no phrase. And then they start going through other phrases like, well, know a frog from your grandma is a phrase because the words rhyme in Serbian. But, that wasn't something I grew up with. So we had a lot of fun trying to, come up with these sayings
Yeah.
over at the holiday. People were laughing about it. So, me being an American, there were funny things. And then her husband would get phrases wrong. Like, do you want, instead of carbonated water, he'd say, do you want the water with gas? Yes, I knew exactly what he meant. Or, he'd say tit for tit. And then his wife just starts laughing because that's not, So those kinds of things were a lot of fun.
Is there a story by the fact that your last name is Serb?
Yeah.
Well, so Sherbedzia is what it originally was, Serbedzija.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure the two.
Yes, so.
And when my father served in the US military, okay, so Peter, my grandfather came in 1950. He took 3 tries to get the rest of his family to the United States. And this is a much longer story, but I'll keep it short. My dad served in the United States Army at least maybe 1962. I don't know.
Or is that you?
Years. And his name tape said Sherbedzia.
Okay.
So in at least part of the time he was in the military, his last name was Sherbedzia. And he told me when I was a kid, they made fun of me, they called me alphabet. He had displaced person, DP, wetback, all this stuff. So I don't know when he changed his name. I don't know when Zoran changed their name. Zoran's naturalization papers say Zoran Serb. Peter's naturalization papers say Peter Serb. Donata always had a green card. My grandmother did not become a citizen. So this is a piece I don't have of that time. And then with my dad being in the military as Sherbedzia, when he got together with my half brother's mother. Oh,
No, she's here for the next program at 3.
Oh, okay.
This is Jane. She comes to a lot of our event.
I think every.
Is it okay?
You should have been here
So I'm
beginning of this
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to
Oh.
find the exact details.
Is it okay if I stay?
Yeah,
It's a little different.
The thing I found interesting early in your talk, you talked about the Turkish Empire, blah,
Yes.
blah, Ottoman Empire, and you're going to the religions, the Muslims and the Serbs and the this and that and the others. Then all of a sudden, how did the name of the country be Serbia if that was the religion? That's
Okay.
where I got confused
So the
a little
majority,
bit.
yeah, so.
I get the Yugoslav and everybody was part of it and then they weren't and then they are and I get all that. But I thought I found that interesting that if they were religion,
Yeah, so
Right.
with the Turkish Ottoman Empire, one of the things that I read was that Serbs were they were allowed to keep practicing their religion. They
With
had to
Serbian.
convert, but yes, so the Orthodox Christian religion. Orthodox Christian religion would be coming from kind of a
oh,
Russia.
Serbian Orthodox
Was that
Church in Milwaukee.
certain
it
rates,
just
basically?
dawned on me.
Yeah, so you do the
Nicholas or-
reverse of Catholics. It's not Catholic, so don't ever say it's,
Yeah.
it's,
Oh, it's not
very-
Catholic. It's
no.
Not the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church.
no, I would say it's a Protestant. If we're gonna look at the
Oh,
change.
Yeah.
really?
And this might be why I need to go to your talks on religion, because I don't think I'm gonna explain it as well.
Not like the Greek Orthodox.
But then I
Yeah.
come from Milwaukee.
That's
Okay, so
Christian.
There's Serbian Orthodox in Milwaukee too.
Ivana is Orthodox Christian. My dad's dog tag said Greek Orthodox.
Ah,
When I was a child, we didn't do any of that. My dad didn't even want my mom to go to her Protestant church. I became a member of my mother's church as a Congregationalist, which is a Protestant.
Yeah.
Okay, Congregationalist, that's what I was baptized in.
Real
as.
general, yeah.
Yeah, so I have no connection, no direct connection to the religious part. But I think what happened was people, because the borders changed, because they had to give loyalty to other entities and empires, what they could have as their identity was their religion. And I think
So
that
they
religion,
formed, the country, Serbia was full of Serbian religious people.
Orthodox.
Orthodox.
right, Orthodox Christians. And so as Serbs, they might live in Croatia, or they might live in Serbia, or they might live in Yugoslavia, but their identity there is Serb. Does that make sense?
Religion.
Because it goes back to the religion and then the culture that's built around that religion that goes back
Right.
hundreds of years.
Okay.
Never knew that existed.
And
Yeah,
the Turks are proud that they allowed other people to keep their own religion.
yes,
I
Yeah.
learned that, I was raised Catholic, but we knew about the Eastern Rite, we knew about the Greek Orthodox, and that was all there was.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's interesting to see. And then there were the Lutherans and
Yeah,
the rest of them, but never
Well,
heard
see, and I
that.
was raised Episcopalian, and you be very careful.
Oh,
You are
yeah.
Anglican Catholics,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then there's Roman Catholics, you see. And we were
That's right.
Anglican Catholics.
Different countries I've been in over my 50 years of service in the Navy, is that certain areas of the country, I'll give you an example of the Philippines, for instance. Southernmost island is 2/3 directly Roman Catholic. And the other third is Muslim.
oh, really?
Yeah.
In the Philippines.
Wow.
And when we were down there training military down there, because the US sent government equipment for the amphibious Marines down there. I was only supposed to be there a week. I was there over a month.
Mm,
What happened is the Chinese did something on the northern end of the Philippines, but that's another story. We were training those men down there, and one Catholic priest was pulled out of church and beheaded right there.
Oh, my word.
And a week later, another Catholic priest was shot at the altar saying, man. But that's the way that area is. They don't want the people to learn a different religion.
Wow.
well, and another thing with Serbian, so Cyrillic, which looks a little bit like Russian as far as the alphabet, that was banned by the Croatians. And now they use it now, but this is another thing.
And that was based on
Identity.
Greek, wasn't it? If I
Was that-
recall, the Cyrillic? Wasn't that based on Greek?
I think it's
Cyrillic?
Russian.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Because you have Latin, you have a Latin version of Serbian and you have a Cyrillic version.
Oh,
of
that's right,
Serbian.
that's right,
They're two
yeah.
alphabets, and I'm not fluent in either one.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is where you see street signs and stuff. And Ivana will be like, it's, you know, you can read it, it's in English. I'm like, but it's Latin, yeah. But it doesn't, it's not a word I can.
Is that like
recognize.
old English?
Right, so it just, you know, that was kind of interesting too, but some of the photographs that I have from my family when they were still communicating with Donatha and Peter were still alive, some of it's written in Cyrillic, some of it's written in Latin, and then there's a cursive version. And I only found that because I found an old book on Serbo-Croatian language and they put the cursive stuff in there. So like Americans, we don't use cursive anymore, but they don't teach it to kids anymore. But these letters are written, it's not block letters. It's not,
Yeah.
so trying to decipher even some of these handwritten letters and stuff. But anyway, I know I've over time, so,
That's
Fascinating.
fascinating, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
well, thank you.
The next group does start at 3:30, but that's a little while yet.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's about religions of the world,
Which religion today are you?
Hinduism.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's pretty tough.
Pretty complicated.
I bet, yes, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed in different countries. Because my wife is Filipino. She's over there right now. We're trying to get her back here. Today. That's is that when I was in high school, I graduated 63. Last school. Foreign language, you could take it, you didn't have to take it. Okay? In the Philippines, there's different cultures over there. If the people came from Japan, they talk to the kids in Japan, they teach Japanese. They go outside to play with the kids and they speak Tagalog because that's the Spanish and tribal language. When they go to first grade, they start learning English, period. They don't speak it as well as you and I do, but they know 3 different languages.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And if they're from China, okay, Chinese and English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's always been the case.
Well, yeah, but we don't, we
We haven't learned to
start learning anything.
No, we don't. In high school, when I was supposed to pick a language, my dad was really upset. Why can't they learn Serbian? My mom's like, because they don't offer Serbian. It's German, Latin, Spanish, and French. That's it, you know? So I went with
And Latin.
Spanish.
I mean, you
Oh, me
gotta go
too.
back into certain countries. You better learn a little bit of Latin because you're gonna find it in the churches,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
trying to figure out what is that word.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I felt at a huge disadvantage and I admire, especially like Strahina at 15, that he could watch a movie. We went to see Avatar and the youngest was mad because I didn't have to read subtitles. Laura didn't have to read subtitles. I'm like, yeah, because it's you know, an American movie. And it's, I'm trying to learn the subtitles in Serbian because it's like, okay, I know what he's saying. I can just try to read it. And Strahina was making jokes about the Sex Pistols to me because he has enough American and British culture, like the music guy. And so I'm like laughing out loud in the theater because he's whispering things to me that have nothing to really to do. He's creating his own movie, but it's amazing how he could hear in Serbian and tell me, and his mother can do that too, because she made me watch, well, she didn't make me, she asked me if I would watch Darkling, which is a movie that deals with Kosovo and the Serbs that live in the north. It doesn't identify Albanians, but basically you have a small town family who's being terrorized by an unknown entity who's trying to push them off their land. And it's a dramatization, but it's based in fact. And she would sit there, we were watching it and she's like, I'll translate it for you. And so dialogue, and she'd say, this is what they said. And I'd be like, okay. And then she would do it again. And I mean, I watched the whole movie in real time with her just telling me what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed that people could do it because even reading
Well, you have to have,
Spanish, I could read it and make
you
figure
have
it
to
out.
have an ear for it, because I speak Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish.
Mhm.
But the hardest part of the language between the speaking and the writing and the reading and the whatnot is the ability to translate on the spot, because our ears are not attuned to hearing it. And when I lived in Spain, it took it a little while, but all of a sudden it's you start flowing because you're hearing it all the time. You don't, unless you watch Telemundo all day long or you're down in the Spanish neighborhoods or something, to a large degree. It's just simply the ears not being attuned to it. Her ears are more attuned to it because they speak so much English and they deal with that language.
You
And all
can't
that.
translate it as you hear it. You have to understand it. And then you can.
Right, you understand it and then you.
That was what I never, I.
You can't do
really
word for
understand it,
word.
But I don't I have trouble understanding people speaking. I
Yeah.
can read it, I can talk it
Yeah.
most of the time.
Mm.
but
The other thing
I
people
have
forget.
trouble, and then my wife would always say, well, what are they saying? And
Yeah,
so I could tell her what they were saying, but it took me a while.
Yeah.
It wasn't an instant.
The other thing too, people, just, but forget is that just like in English, you have people who speak fast
Yes.
and people who do not. People who enunciate, and people who do not.
Mm.
Right.
The same thing happens, and when I was teaching the kids, and they, oh, look at, they talk so fast. I said, no. Some do, some don't. The perception is because you don't know the language, you think they're speaking.
The slang,
way too
the
fast.
slang. is
Well,
like it too.
but it is that they have their own
Yep.
idiosyncrasies, their own, you know.
I call it
speaking.
slang, it probably isn't even slang, but throwing away the same.
Yeah, well, idioms, there's an awful.
And then if you don't.
Yeah.
understand-
It's just like, okay, you would go, say, for instance, in a country, you go as far as Forestville. That's a different dialect. Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Hundreds of them, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or like one of my men, he was from the south. And we were in a meeting, he says, you know, you guys got 26 letters in the outfit. We only have 24. We don't know which two are missing. And you throw that out there.
Yeah.
Just like, you laugh. But that's.
Well, the Philippines, they speak Spanish, I think that's what.
Basically
that's what
Spanish,
basically-
yeah.
It was settled by Spain.
But it doesn't, that's their national language, but they do, nobody
But
understands
it's
what they're
different,
saying.
yeah. Well, and in Spain,
If you understand Spanish
yeah,
and you can get about, well, I can get more than 2/3 of it, but the dialect from place to place is a little bit different.
yeah.
Neighborhood to neighborhood.
Well, the same thing between
Like, then
Spain
you
and
got people
Mexico.
talking Chinese, you
Yeah.
got people talking Japanese, and they put it together.
Well, the Spanish in Spain, where you've got the Catalan up in
If they go up to
Barcelona.
Barcelona, it's a whole nother.
Oh, that's a different, that's half French,
I
half
got lost
Spanish,
up
sort
there.
of. But you got Spanish, Spain Spanish, you have South American Spanish, and you have Mexican Spanish.
Mhm.
Other than differences in words, it's the Mexican Spanish has an awful lot of Indian influence. And
Slap.
words, put
Slap.
together and whatnot. I was taught when I was being trained early on, my professors were basically South American and Cuban of that influence. And then the Mexican I learned a little later, but or the Mexican Spanish. They get you, they understand it. It's not that terribly.
I
different.
had
But it is-
Castilian, what I was taught.
You were? Oh, wow.
Yeah, from Madrid.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
Different,
fascinating.
different from the rest of Spain, so
Oh, yeah,
totally different.
yeah,
We were in a small town that didn't speak English. so-
yeah.
And not only the spoken language, German has at least 3 different versions.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Written language.
Yeah, I.
Because we have, I know they did Suturin is not too long ago, and then we have letters in current, KURR.
I do not understand Irish or Scottish.
Yeah,
We watch TV show. I have to put on I put on captions.
Yeah,
yeah.
I have to turn the volume up, I know that.
Well,
But
it's been
isn't that like Belgium too? There's Walloon and
Very well.
Yeah, that's.
They got 3 languages.
Out
There's
originally,
3 languages in
recording.
French,
French,
the
German,
Belgian.
oh, it's
recording.
German, okay.
I got a cheat sheet
I find
where you look at them.
Well,
I had to
pretty
do that
soon
for
the
technology
next
when
group's
we
gonna
went
be
to
coming
Spain.
in. The world
I had to
religions.
get the technology, I had to have cheat
And I
sheet of
didn't
that.
get to.
Oh.
Show these.
Oh.
That's
Yeah,
not what we
that's
should be
okay.
English.
My grandmother.
Like up in Scandinavia.
And so
doesn't it?
Ivana helped me get the order of everybody.
Scotty, I got a lot of
Yesterday,
Scandinavia.
in
I don't know, we got my
1933,
family, But I got a lot of
Oh,
stuff.
wow. You should scan it because then you can get in really close.
I do have a scan. I did have a scan.
German.
It's probably on this.
We could get you a translator.
And then growing up, this was,
So simple.
this
But I
was framed
mean,
in our
a lot of
living
the
room.
things
So
I
there's
do
Julie,
because-
there's
Yeah, well,
Juliana.
you've been traveling.
That's her brother,
Oh.
pre-drive, who I didn't
That's
bring
okay.
talk a lot to the paper.
Stuart mentioned him.
And that's Lauren and my dad. And
You're
that's the
live.
grandmother, and then
Wow.
her other,
Session.
Those are
cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might.
But this is the picture that I kind of knew from now as far as who. And then this one was in Zoran's apartment, so my uncle's apartment, so I didn't know who everybody was, and Ivana
That's so great.
helped me
Yeah.
figure that out. So, yeah, those are kind of. You know, and they don't, Ivana's like, we don't think in years and stuff. You have this whole method of documenting kind of, American style
I mean,
genealogy. They've met these people, they just have these stories.
Yeah, stories and.
And not.
And
the
as you
mistakes.
know, you could see that in my heritage, there's a lot more Europeans
I found.
doing their
I do it. I
genealogy.
found when I started out,
I mean-
think there was a subscription to
Well, thank you.
Yeah, 6 months.
I'm gonna end the program now.
Spend your life on it
See ya
because
in a month.
as much as you can, and then you can fill in all the other spots.
The library here does have the library edition. of
Welcome.
Ancestry.com
Okay.
that you don't
Bye.
have to pay for.
But it
It's
doesn't-
not quite